officer for cow protection agriculture in ISKCON, and I've been doing this service. It's a voluntary missionary service for the last 4 years, and by now I visit most of our farm communities around the globe. And we are running, this is supposed to be a map of the world somehow. And here is where we are: North America and South America, Africa, Europe, Russia, and Australia. And the conference started really here in 2008 in New Vrajadam, one of our strong communities, and it has developed to North America, South America, 2016, and this year we are going to Russia and to Australia. So the idea in these conferences is to bring researchers, technical people, farmers, sympathizers of ecology to find solutions. So this is what we have been doing. And in today's presentation, I am going to show to you some of the relationships. Is that better? I'm okay. Yes, we have farmers which goes from 1,600 hectares to farms we have 50 hectares, 30 hectares. So there's a wide variety. There are farms that are very rich, and some farms that have barely any resources. So this is a wide range of rich, poor, diverse. Some have very poor soil, some have very rich soil. So we are looking at a very strong variety of places. And today we really wanted to have a closer look at Dharma. So we just had a definition from Webster, so Dharma, what would it be? Just conformity to one's duty and nature. Also from Oxford, it brings a more religious definition, saying that the eternal and inherent nature of reality, regarded in Hinduism as a cosmic law, underlying right behavior and social order. So, from our tradition, we find that there is a definition which kind of is very connected. It's the innate characteristic of a being or a thing. And that's be the heart of this presentation, the innate characteristic of a being or a thing. And our founder, Acharya, he also defined it as occupational duty, constitutional duty, that is Dharma, functional duty. So in this presentation, we're going to try to show you how constitutional duty of each one, plus the innate characteristics, are really relevant in the world of sustainability and ecology. So that's what we're trying to do today. And you see in this tradition, the cows and the bulls, they're very connected to Dharma, as you see. For example, there's a relationship between the cows and the bulls. You find in one of the scriptures, which has been cited here by Jiva Goswami, which was a presentation yesterday, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma is shown as the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. So here you see a deep connection between Dharma and the form of a bull. Then you have another quotation which shows that in Bhagavatam 1.17.3 that Gam, the cow, Cha, also, Dharma Dhugan, is offering, you can draw religious dharmic principles from the cow. So again, Dharma and the cow, very connected. And then you have another quote where it says that Gavyam, Ajam, Havishu, Aham. So the Supreme Person is now telling us that he, among all the ingredients of a sacrifice, he is the Panchagavya, the 5 elements which comes from the cow. And that's something which connects it very much. So now here we are looking at something which is, now we established Dharma in the cows, but here divinity is much more established. Look at this. Namo Brahmanyaya Devaya, go, which refers to cows. Brahmanya, philosophers, seekers. Jagatitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya. This person, Supreme, is called Govinda. It's a person who tenders cows. It's like a divine person who tended. So a connection between the cows, the philosophers, and the Supreme Personality is really well established, and this is from the Vishnu Purana, another scripture in our tradition. And then there's another quote which established that, which is Akila Dharma Bhavanam. You know, who is the master of all religious principles, Dharma, or the occupational duty for a human being. So here we have in our philosophical scope a very interesting connection between Dharma, the cows, and the Supreme Person. So it gives us an idea that that's something important, that we should pay attention. When you look at ecology, we'll find that a common definition is you have oikos, which means house, and logia, which means study. So the study of the house. How do you look at your environment, right? And they'll basically define that as the branch of biology that deals with relationships of organism or another and their physical surroundings. So ecology is really looking at relationships, you know, interdependence between different layers of that ecosystem. And it's very much connected to that balance of nature. You know, that's what an ecological. But then you must say Dharma and ecology. Now, what would be a connection between both of these? You see that sustain and sustainability comes from sustain. And the word Dharma comes from the root dri, which means to sustain. So there you go, a very deep connection between ecology and Dharma, right? And if you look at the origin of our thought process of production, of agriculture, agro-development, you see that with the reductionist movement, you know, like the positivism, mechanicism, we really went down a track of quantity. Quantity versus space. That's the definition of profit and productivity. How much you get per area. And a commodity is how much you produce over a piece of ground, like the commodity of rice, wheat, soya. So it's been reduced to only the quantity. So you see, quantity and market become very important. And that has generated industrial agriculture. We won't go into that, that's well documented, this discussion. So opposing that, you have all these other alternative agriculture movements. Start in India with Sir Albert Howard, organic agriculture, permaculture, biodynamics, and all of this evolution, which came up as a synthesis to agro-ecology. So agroecology makes an attempt to link quality, which is the main characteristic of these systems, but they are kind of limited in quantity, and it tries to reconcile with quantity. So agroecology is really trying to design agroecological systems which can give quality and quantity. So in that line of thought, they really went into things like agricultural sciences, ecology, indigenous systems. They really look at the Indians of Amazon, of Africa, of Australia. They're trying to understand how they kind of navigated those natural laws which Dharma might give a clue. So that was part of their idea. But still, there was a missing link, which is some of the secrets, as we just heard beautifully in the previous presentation, how these birds migrate from Alaska to Hawaii. So there are secrets which Dharma can reveal. And that's a field that we here can really explore and can really contribute. And just today, you see that these are cows, and here's the dairy industry is very blamed for the ecological hazard of our planet. And some lines say that they are the major contributors to global warming. And the ultimate vision is that ultimately the cows would basically disappear, and that would mean success for the system. Now, that creates a little research question for us, because as we have seen, there is a big connection between Dharma and Bhakti and the practice of devotion. Because, as we saw, you can derive the religious principles from there. So for the Vaishnavas and this Gaudiya Vaishnava, it poses a challenge, a Vaishnava practitioners, to show a functional system for producing milk from protected cows and the benefits of such milk for the upliftment of consciousness. So that's the research question which we can really engage and give a contribution to the world. Because the trend is going in a direction that industrial dairy is not very good, it's not very beneficial, therefore we should eliminate. But we have to consider that Dharma is very connected to the bulls and the cows. So that poses a real research question. And to start addressing that, one of our members in the team, he has been researching for a long time about how a certain substance which is present in the milk is also responsible for very refined activities in the brain. And that's the presentation which Chris McNay, Purushottam, is going to present for us right now. Okay? Are you ready? You have your presentation?
Srila Prabhupada spoke repeatedly of milk developing the finer tissues of the brain, thereby enhancing our material intelligence. We have taken this statement, as we have many similar revelations that we've heard about during the course of the past few days, as sutras or seeds of a deeper understanding. This presentation advances a plausible argument. The peer-reviewed published studies referenced represent only the tip of the iceberg of the material examined and have not been carefully vetted for scientific validity, primarily due to the author's lack of familiarity with the technicalities of the very broad range of work examined. Sadly, due to the novel perspective taken in this work, and consequently the relative paucity of very specific quantitative data pertinent to this line of reasoning, considerably more work is required to establish a strong case. So, anybody want to venture where's the seat of material intelligence? It's probably not the answer that you're, go ahead. The heart. Any other? The brain. Okay, all right. The answer might, it's a little facetious, but on the other hand, it's quite serious. So here we have the cow seated, and the cow may be the seat of material intelligence. So what is the unique quality found in the milk of properly cared-for cows that is essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain, yet is practically not found elsewhere in the civilized human diet? The cerebral cortex, working in concert with multiple other regions of the brain, is considered the seat of higher level cognitive activity. DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, an omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acid, which many of us I'm sure have heard of at this point, is an important component of the neural membranes and is present in 30 to 40% of the phospholipids in the gray matter of the cerebral cortex. That's huge. Your brain is, at least certain portions of the brain that are crucial for its function are composed of 30 to 40% DHA. Within the context of specific experimental designs, changes in brain concentrations of DHA are positively associated with changes in cognitive or behavioral performance. DHA can affect neurological function by modulating signal transduction pathways, neurotransmission, neurogenesis, myelination, membrane receptor function, synaptic plasticity, neuroinflammation, membrane integrity, and membrane organization. We have shown that dietary DHA is crucial for large-scale brain organization. So, where does this DHA come from? Is it provided in our diet? Can it be manufactured by the human body? Omega-3 PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, cannot be synthesized de novo by the human body, so we must rely on dietary means to acquire them. It's not exactly 100% true. Pregnant women are pretty good at producing DHA, as it's essential for producing these finer tissues of the brain. It's been organized that they are able to do it. In fact, all of us can do it in emergency situations where the diet simply doesn't provide it and it's necessary. But requires a metabolic process that's very expensive for the body, so we don't do it. Dietary DHA is incorporated into cellular membranes of all tissues. The extent of incorporation into the tissue membranes is dependent on dietary intake. Consumption of recommended intakes of omega-3 fatty acids, DHA in particular, may lead to a general increase in the overall health and well-being of the population. So on the right, we see the orange and yellow band there is phospholipid membrane of a cell, and the DHA is crucial. It's practically as we said earlier, 30 to 40% of that membrane. As well, you find it within the cell and it's circulating in the blood. DHA is only produced, however, directly via photosynthesis in marine phytoplankton and certain terrestrial plants, generally considered inedible by humans. The omega-3 bond captures the energy of the sun to transduce light energy into electron flow. Marine dietary sources of DHA are available for some, yet consumption of this marine life is not recommended by Krishna, nor easily accessible and affordable for everyone, or ecologically sustainable at world population scale. We all, I'm sure at this point, are familiar with the idea that we're overfishing the oceans, and there's not much opportunity left for taking fish out of the ocean at all, to say nothing of the famous one, wild-caught Alaska salmon that we have down here on the left. Cows living in confinement, whose diet is restricted to a very limited variety of plants grown on petrochemical fertilized soil, have virtually no DHA in their milk, barring artificial supplementation with fish oil or algae oil or something along that line, things that cows don't ordinarily eat. It's not good for them. Abundant, ecologically regenerative, potentially widely available. Few terrestrial resources of preformed DHA meet all these minimal requirements for widespread dietary consumption, with the exception of milk from properly cared for cows. Yet, cows themselves do not produce DHA. DHA must be present in their diet to appear in their milk, and for that matter, it also must be present in their diet to appear anywhere in their body, such as in their flesh. Even the widely touted organic and grass-fed cows do not eat the wide range of DHA-rich pasture plants that animals enjoy grazing in an opulent, biodiverse, multi-level forest growing in a healthy soil environment. Cows grazing on exceptionally diverse, healthy, young forbs, grasses, legumes, brassicas, shrubs, and some trees, fertilized by their own dung and urine, personally harvest the DHA produced by these plants and pass it directly into their milk. We can enhance the quantity of DHA, or can we? How do we do this? Enhance the quantity of DHA available for cows grazing on pasture plants. Agro-silvopastoral farming. It's an ancient form of permaculture that's become quite popular these days, has long been practiced worldwide as a method of increasing productivity by combining agriculture, particularly grain and vegetable production, fruitful forestry, that's the silvo piece, and the daily shifting of grazing ruminants, especially cows, from place to place in a sparsely forested, biodiverse, multi-layered landscape. Dung and urine from the cows nourish soil microbes who in turn provide nutrients for the plants. A healthy soil food web provides bioaccessible raw materials, and sunlight provides the energy for photosynthesis at the lowest trophic level to build healthy plant tissues containing DHA. Microorganisms at the lowest trophic level of the soil food web are nurtured when the cow passes dung and urine as she grazes, pressing them into the soil. So that arrow pointing up there is pointing at organic matter that the cow is passing on the pasture plants, and then the various animals that live within the soil and on the surface of the soil are processing the nutrients and making them available to the food web beyond the soil. So DHA is found in the growing tender tips of certain plants which thrive in an agro-silvo-pastoral grazing ground. A properly tended grazing ground offering a diverse range of healthy plants is likely to have some plants with DHA available in their growing tips during most times of the year. Important point here, properly tended. It means somebody's doing something about this. It's not just growing out there willy-nilly. The available of forages to maximize the amount of long-chain N3-PUFA omega-3s, particularly DHA, in meat, as I mentioned earlier, and for that matter, similarly in milk, is dependent on the nature of forage, including the amount and type of lipid present, and is greater when animals consume fresh forage compared with hay or silage. Cows sense this differential, and when moved frequently from pasture to pasture, a practice known today as rotational grazing, will selectively graze the tips of the DHA-rich plants, as we mentioned, not only by species, but by time of day, growth stage, season, and so on. Rotational grazing has been there, written down in the pages of the Vedic literature for more than 5,000 years for anyone to appreciate. This milk is very satisfying. In Vrindavan, there are cows that fulfill all desires, kamadhenus, and their number is unlimited. They graze from forest to forest and deliver only milk. The people want nothing else. Ecologically favorable growing conditions allow a wide range of plants living symbiotically in the rich soil of a naturally fertilized agro-silvo-pastoral environment to produce a virtually never-ending feast of DHA-rich forage. An enlightened farmer arranges for the proper care of their cows by providing the opportunity for them to always personally harvest fresh DHA-containing plants growing in rich, healthy soil. It's the farmer's responsibility. 2, fertilize this soil, thereby encouraging continued robust plant growth. It's the cow's responsibility. 3, the cow will deliver her milk to her cowherd family. The fundamental spiritual nature and very real value of lifetime cow protection set in small local communities dedicated to nurturing cows and bulls goes far beyond milk products themselves to literally, as we just heard a little while ago, to literally drawing the principles of religiosity in liquid form. So what exactly are these principles of religiosity drawn out by our pious activities as we care for the cows and bulls? For everyone to thrive, each of us must do our duty religiously. The simple activities necessary to scrupulously honor our responsibility to care for Krishna's dearmost friends, the cows and bulls, will draw from us behavior ideally suited to making advancement in spiritual life. The prime duty of a spiritually enlightened farmer is to grow food for the community, including the cows and bulls. As we now understand, cows should be offered grasses, especially soft, fragrant grasses, which are used to feed the cows so they would be strong and healthy and give nice milk. Well, some holy man dudes got it all backwards. Well, maybe not. Thank you very much.
So we see that's a very interesting research opportunity. This statement, which has just been presented, is present in many, many places in our scriptural register. And now, if we start to analyze how there is a correlation between DHA, milk, and systems of grazing, we have a great contribution to offer to the planet. And I'm going just to show very quickly to you other similar research opportunities. And I'll try to do fast so we might have some little questions to follow up. So now we're really looking at research opportunities, other research opportunities. And the first one, and that's an appeal for this institute, is that we really do need a literature review. We do need, as a community, to come up what has been written on these topics. And the ministry is engaged in producing such research works, but we really need to create a bigger network to actually have a very nice, solid review of what's already been produced in this area. Now, there is a book being produced at this moment called Animal Cow Care in Hindu Dharma, which is a book that has been contracted by Palgrave Macmillan, a prestigious printer. And the author, which is Kenneth Valpey, Krishna Kshetra Swami, he is a PhD from Oxford, and he is addressing many of the issues that we are facing. Like this topic of animal rights in India takes a nationalist phase, which is, he explains. And he also explains how the scenario of the world, cow protection is something relatively new, which was introduced by this institution mostly. And he goes on to analyze some of the aspects of climate, animal rights, where does it stop? And it's a very interesting book. It's actually a landmark in our research. So if there are researchers interested in animal rights, he's a very nice researcher to connect to and develop a bigger database. They're nice, aren't they? Beautiful little creatures. So another area of research we could go in is cows and consciousness. Right? Is that right? Yes. How they influence positively humans. Because the cows have such a thing as a Surya Ketu Nadi, which is kind of a device in the back. So that's another research opportunity. How humans are influenced by cows. There are so many reports of humans coming close to cows and saying how their life has changed, how they feel peaceful, how they felt that so many things have become different. So a study on that would be very relevant to measure that. I've seen some research on the influence of the Mahamantra on consciousness. This could be another very interesting research. It is said that cows have the power to change the vibration of an environment, therefore influence your consciousness. And cow dung is considered to be soothing to the mind. Interesting. It creates sattvic vibrations. So apart from those, let's say, more philosophical or even ethical and on a higher level, we have a very practical, down-to-earth research needed on ahimsa dairy equation. Because one thing is to talk about, another thing is to show it running. So here, we really need to look at Breeding cycles. Should we have a calf every 2 years, every 3 years? How does that impact your total herd size? Because you can't sell or kill your animals, because now they're family members. You don't kill your family members. So it has a whole different picture to it. And that requires research. Also, you see, different milks have different properties. So what if one of the engineers come up with a system where you just test different qualities of milk instantaneously, and you can say this milk is good for this milk is good for that. That would be very valuable. At the moment, you only have a densiometer, which measures if the milk has how much fat or how much water. Milkman likes to put water in the milk to get a little profit, especially in India, where I live. And then Panchagavya, which is all these 5 elements. India and the Tirumala Research Institute are investing $35 million in studying Panchagavya. All the benefits, antiseptic benefits of cow urine, cow dung, different soaps, cosmetics, they're producing a high list, because their thesis is, if the farmers have an economy from this, why would they kill their cows? They'll maintain the cows. So it's a very interesting approach to animal rights, because they have a function which is not aggressive to them. Simply by passing stool and urine, they're contributing to the economy of a family. So that's a very interesting perspective. And also draft animal, you know, because half of the population will be males. What are you going to do with them? You know, when a man becomes supported by his wife and he's just hanging at home and doing nothing, he starts getting bad ideas. So we shouldn't let all the bulls just depend on the ladies for their milk, you know. They have to work. They have to do something for their existence. But they need to have a framework to do that. And then biofertilizers. This is a huge, huge field that could be investigated. So many biofertilizers, natural organic manures, vermicomposting. It could really make a difference. So those are practical researches. And then we come back here to this to say that when we went all the way down here to this line of the equation, we really eliminated a lot of our environment. A lot of problems came up, and one of them, I'm going to tell you, is this one right here. You see? We keep saying that the methane which comes from the cows, the fart of the cow, is the major global warming problem. What about the fart of this gentleman here? They're much stinkier. You see, plus, if you have a look at the same picture, how many people are here? That's employment, you know? Now, this gentleman here in red, they have unemployed everybody. So that's a huge problem, because it's causing social disruption in so many countries where that balance was present. And then, when you go a little forward, we have here Ayurveda telling us that there are 27 properties in milk. And one of them, just if you have a look at this, it's just swadupaka, means sweet. Milk is sweet when you take. Milk is sweet when it's digested. So it has that sweetness all along. That's why it's considered sushuma ahar. It's a balanced diet. In the past, sages lived only from milk. They would drink basically milk because it's a balanced, full diet. So all of these researchers would actually put milk in their proper perspective, which is now being said as just producing lactose intolerance, and it's just contributing to global warming, deforestation, because the system used is this system here. You're evaluating the activity of dealing with cows under this paradigm. But once you put in the proper paradigm, it takes a whole different shape. And study is really necessary. And then you have, of course, other areas like Vastu Shastra, which is basically kind of a spiritual architecture. You put everything in perspective with the coordination. And actually, the main objective is to harmonize. That's the main objective of Vastu Shastra, right? Because what happens is a building should vibrate sacred geometry. Every building reflects that. And that has a direct influence on consciousness, on happiness, on prosperity. So a study of those cases could really be something quite interesting, you know. For example, radioactive substances like alpha, beta, and gamma rays, it's everywhere, and it's bad for us. No wonder we have so much cancer around. But if you do with proper materials like mud, it stops radiation. So in the past, people much healthier because the buildings was facilitating that. Today they have concrete. We don't know what that's happening to us. Okay, and then other areas. If you are a biologist, all the genetic resources that could be investigated. Like we have such a rich necessity for indigenous plants which are disappearing. The biodiversity is disappearing because we are only using a few genetic resources, a few species. And that's a great problem for health, for the environment, for the ecosystems. So studying this in relation to Dharma, how that plays a role is super important. And then, of course, we can have botanical gardens, which is a great tool for teaching a country about the species that have been forgotten. So all of a sudden, Americans come to your place, and they find a wide variety of species which have been disappeared, and that creates a great interest. So it's another research area where we can attract people in a language which is universal, and then you lead to something higher. So these are very interesting tools of research. Soil. The soil is another great thing. We have great disasters in our history of farming in ISKCON. We buy very poor soils. And this is in Russia, by the way. A farmer which had about from here to here of black soil. He was a rich man. Forestry is another great area, and farming system with ecological, like syntropic agriculture. And finally, this is a transition to what we're saying. People already planting trees, you can start transitioning this environment. So study about this syntropic systems with cows in can be very valuable. We have about 4 minutes, right? I would like to extend you to questions or comments. We have one at the back. Thank you so much.
What are the two farming communities in North America that you're looking at or that are a part of this?
The farming communities?
In America, yeah.
In America, we have a very good one in Pennsylvania, Gittan Agri. They're doing very well with the Ahimsa dairy equation. They're actually supplying that to many, many places. We have New Vrindavan, which has another characteristics. They have a huge piece of land, and they're organizing a system which in the future you see great results. So they're on the way. And of course, Alachua here, there's a farm community which has so many families. As soon as they get it together, they have a great potential. Yes. I mean, getting together means working together. Because it's so many. I have here a couple who has a food forest in their backyard, and I really admire them for that. And another friend has cows at home and teach their children a homeschooling system. So they have so many ingredients. It's only a question of working it out. Another question.
Could I ask a quick one? Actually, I have two quick questions.
For me?
Either.
Okay.
One of the variables that wasn't mentioned was the breed of the cow. You mentioned it was the breed of the cow.
Okay.
How does the efficacy of the milk, the dung, and the urine change with the breed of the cow? And specifically in terms of the Surya Ketu Nadu, I thought that only a particular breed of cows having the hump have this ability to really affect our consciousness or even brain tissues.
That's a very good research to be made. Do Western cows have Surya Nadis? Are they kind of smaller? We don't know. Indian people will say only Indian cows have Surya Nadi because that's very dear to them. And actually, Shastra does indicate that this hump is where the Surya Nadi is located. And for that purpose, these cows would have a special quality, differentiated quality. So we recognize the quality. We don't deny that cows which don't have it don't have other good qualities.
The other question was whether DHA is really the answer to the brain tissue sort of a problem, right?
That's another...
I mean, need not be.
It may not be, but at least we are proposing an exciting field for you to start researching.
Yeah.
Because what if it is?
Yeah.
It's a major development.
Yeah.
Okay? We have a question.
Anyways, I thought very useful sort of presentation and topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for Chris McNay.
Yeah.
So the research on the DHA in the milk that you took from the outside sources, was that related to DHA in meat of cows?
Yes. The cow is eating these plants that have DHA in them. That DHA is incorporated into the flesh and the milk, both. So those who are eating, well, these days, you know that there's a trend for meat eaters to eat grass-fed beef. So they're getting DHA in that grass-fed beef because it depends also on how the soil and the plants and the whole environment for those cows, how they're grazed, how often they're grazed, and so on and so forth. It may be more or less DHA. The standard is Krishna. Look at Krishna and Balaram in Vrindavan. That's the standard. They're going to have more DHA in their milk than the cow that's living in a barn and being fed with silage that's maybe sitting there for the last 4 months. It's not fresh food.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a quick question with regards to the source, the publications that you'd mentioned in your talk. Was the DHA found in different plants and foliage all across different parts of the world, or was it centered around one particular area? Do you know?
Oh, it's got much more to do with the specific environment where the plants are that the animal is eating. It's not a question of one place in the world or another place in the world. It's a question of how well are those plants doing?
Okay.
The health of the plants, the health of the soil, then you're going to get more DHA in those plants through the photosynthesis.
Right.
And then you put the cows out on that high quality pasture, and they're going to harvest it.
So,
and they're sensitive to plants that have more or less DHA in them.
So DHA production is a conserved mechanism across all different plant life, depending on how healthy they are, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's the impression we get. There's been very, very little research on this question. I mean, amazingly little. I think it's because the vast majority of people are coming at this question from the point of view of industrial cows. They're trying to figure out how to maximize the milk, not maximize the health qualities of that milk.
Yeah.
And, devotees are not thinking about how much milk can we get. Ideally, we're thinking about how much we can enhance the intelligence of our congregation, shall we say, at minimum. That's our goal, not how much milk can we get.
So, Prabhu, really quick, do you happen to know, during your research, is DHA destroyed by pasteurization?
No,
because
it's
not destroyed. Okay.
I only found one reference to that point, and that reference indicated that it is not.
And then another good research area would be comparing the beneficial effects of raw milk versus pasteurized
Absolutely.
milk. When Krishna and Balaram used to drink raw milk consistently. So.
Yes.
Okay, so we'd like to thank you all very much for your patience with us and our technical problems. But in the end, we are blessed by Mother Cow, and somehow we made it. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.